The internet was an amazing technological revolution, but the issue was you couldn't invest in the internet itself. You could invest in the infrastructure that supported it. You could, of course, invest in the companies that built on top of it, and that's where tremendous value was created. But the difference with crypto is you can invest in those networks, in those base layers, and that's where a lot of the excitement has gone in these early years. But of course, there's going to be tremendous companies and value built around those companies as well. And when I look at the crypto landscape, I'm seeing these multi-billion-dollar ideas that are popping up left and right. And Hedera is no different. In fact, I think that Hedera has some of the most dedicated teams, some of the most talented teams, and some of the best ideas in the space. And of course, we cover that week in and week out. We have some fantastic interviews here for you today from Karate Combat, from Dead Pixels, and updates from probably at least a dozen different companies that are also building in the space. Now, will every single one of these startups succeed? Probably not, just from the rule of how startups go. But I think collectively, they can't be denied. There is too much talent, there's too many good ideas, and the base layer, Hedera, has built the perfect foundation for them to build on top of. Welcome back, I'm Brandon, the HBAR Bull, here once again to give you the latest in the Hedera ecosystem. But as always, none of this is financial advice. Use it for entertainment or educational purposes only. So the first thing we're going to start off with today is SKUx and Mondelez. Of course, Mondelez is one of the Hedera governing council members and one of the biggest companies in the world, and we've talked to them a few times in the past, but there's a pretty interesting update that just came out. So SKUx announced the completion of the first phase of its payments-based offer innovation project. The first phase of the innovation project successfully expands upon the current SKUx and Mondelez customer service program and market, which was designed to enhance customer offer experiences by adding a near real-time SKUx digital payment option alongside coupons, mailed paper checks, and vouchers. The expanded innovation project publicly maps a subset of these payment transactions to the Hedera network, providing an end-to-end secure and seamless customer offer experience tied to an immutable record of transaction. This is a groundbreaking step forward for the retail ecosystem. Bobby Tinsley, who we've had on before, he's the SKUx CEO and one of their co-founders, said, "We're proud to play a pivotal role in delivering an incredible customer experience for Mondelez as well as the broader retail ecosystem. At SKUx, we're helping merchants, brands, and payments partners unlock value with every transaction, with a mission to deliver personalized, seamless, and impactful buying experiences that drive loyalty, financial inclusion, and wellness." The head of blockchain strategy at Mondelez went on to say, "With today's high volatility in consumer behavior and increasing complex supply chains, it's crucial we focus on digital transformation and leveraging Web3 technologies to increase customer satisfaction and engagement. Our work with SKUx and Hedera provides unmatched transparency and is a real-world example of transformational opportunity blockchain provides. This is only the beginning." So I love to hear that this is just the beginning, and SKUx, even though they talk an awful lot about promotions and coupons, they are adamant that they are a payments company. So I can see how this might just be the beginning of what they do along with Mondelez and other retailers in the space. So now we're going to move on to financial markets with Gregg Bell. He is the Senior Vice President in charge of financial markets at the HBAR Foundation. And he was on Nasdaq this past week and had some really good insights. I grabbed a few of the highlights that I wanted to pass on. So let's check it out.
You know, it's an area that we've been thinking about for a long time. And at the HBAR Foundation, which is the venture arm of Hedera, one of the things that we focus on a lot is use cases, right? It's use cases and also the transactions that account for those. When you look at the summation of, the top 15 chains, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, Avalanche, Hedera, and you go down the list, you're talking about over 100 billion transactions. And what we've done is we look at these and say, all right, what are the real use cases? What are the themes we see across these? And there are really three that come out. When you set aside the store of value narrative as a buy and hold strategy, the transfer of value is one of those narratives. The second really is around smart contract use. And the third really is data recording. Now, each of these three narratives has a specific trust solution that's being applied. And I think that's one thing that industries and institutions need to be thinking about. What is the trust problem that's being solved? And for transfers of value, it's often a counterparty risk. It's a settlement. Is there a trust problem there? For the recording of data, it's ownership, it's title, it's verification. And then for smart contracts, is there execution trust, right? Code is law. Will there be different things that will occur following an event, an if-then statement? And so when we look at these, what we found is that over 50% of those transactions, 50 billion transactions, are occurring in one of the sectors that gets the least amount of attention, and that's the data recording.
Well, it can be all of the above. I mean,
Right.
we're talking more or less every asset in the traditional financial markets is going to be tokenized, and it's going to go through this process. I would like to draw attention, you talk about democratization of finance. I mean, stable coins are the original real-world asset, and that's the first real-world asset that's been tokenized. That's now like a $100 billion market. And talk about, the whole world, all over the world, far beyond, financial capitals like this one. People are using a form of RWA, and I think, crypto has sometimes struggled for adoption, but I mean, you look at stablecoins.
Well, stablecoins
that's
absolutely
adoption
have
right
been
there.
one. Another one, of course, is money market funds. And you look at the largest money market fund, and why was it out there? I think the narrative is around distribution. Here's a new client base that might be interested in these products. They're being used as pseudo checking accounts, yield-bearing instruments that give access to those in the crypto industry broadly. But you look at the largest one, right? We've got about 500 million or so within the largest money market fund. It's held across 26 or so public addresses, the top 5 of which make up 66% of that issuance. So it's still very early stage, and I think the distribution narrative is one that is playing itself out. So, why tokenize? And I think that's where we're going to see a lot more of a change of a story, because you can do so much with tokenization within smart contracts that touch on all 3 of those components. So it's not just a distribution story. It's a story about how you can embed more trust within an underlying asset. We've got a number of different companies that are broker-dealers, that are like Archax and Red Swan, that are tokenizing real estate or tokenizing other financial products. And then you have large institutions like Mondelez that are tokenizing their parts of their supply chain or their coupon business. And all those can be led and weaved into a financial product. Well, it needs to be global to begin with, because you're talking about pockets of capital that exist across various geographic
Is that feasible though with multiple jurisdictions?
It can be with alignment around different standards. And so I think right now what we're seeing is, ERC as Ethereum has a variety of different token standards like the 1400 that is coming out and saying, all right, here's a standard that can be applied across a variety of different protocols, such as Hedera. And so we actually came to market with an open source tool called the Hedera Asset Tokenization Studio, which takes the ERC standard and enables a variety of embedded components and building upon that for interoperability. And there are different banks across the world that are finding that their regulators may be more accommodated to different use cases. So Shinhan Bank, as an example, has been pursuing on Hedera various remittance use cases outside of the United States. Remittance, of course, is very important, but that's just using this technology as a rail. Right? I think the analogy is a FedEx box, right? You can put a real-world asset, you can put a receipt of a token or a security within that box and let it move around on those FedEx rails. But there's so much more that can be done with this technology than simply the movement of capital. It's the use of the smart contracts for that logic, right? And that's being deployed right now in compliance areas, but there's a lot more in terms of taking what is securitization, the future of which I believe will be tokenization, and embedding cash flow logic. There's more that can be related to the data layers of recognizing title and ownership. Take mortgages as an example. 1% of your mortgage cost is related to title, right? That can be easily applied to blockchain technology to improve the overall cost experience for a user. If a business is in a B2B area is using tokenization to improve their business, it's got to be valuable to them. And sometimes when you're talking about a remittance or a reconciliation benefit, that plays out over a long period of time. But having a single source of truth to say that a trade between you and I, or the 3 of us or 4 of us, that this is the single source of truth, is very valuable in reducing billions of dollars of reconciliation costs that occur across markets today. A16Z just came out with a report today that showed that cryptocurrency usage and adoption is at an all-time high. And the question is, where is it coming? In what format is that adoption? And I really think that from an institutional perspective, the regulatory burdens related to the recording of data is a lot lower. And so that's why we're seeing over 50% of the transactions across all top 15 networks are related to this specific use case. And so the institutions are going and saying, all right, I'm going to record the provenance, where an asset originated from, when it originated, and those are the building blocks, right? It's not that tokenization isn't just that cardboard box. It's so much more. It's the building blocks of here's the title to your mortgage that is then pooled together, and then you can construct a tokenized asset that can trade on these new rails. Well, I mean, today, just using Hedera as an example, it has more transactions from institutions than any other chain, largely because of the governance model that's in place. We've got institutions like Google, IBM, Boeing, Nomura, Aberdeen, and Mondelez that are all pursuing use cases on Hedera. And when you talk about the specifics of any of these use cases, it's about scalability, it's about interoperability, and it's about what's the trust solution that's ultimately being addressed. Sometimes it's transaction throughput, right? If you're talking about movements of money or remittance, I think transaction throughput is really key. And that's where some of the innovation that's going to happen that I'm very excited about. It's not just going to be, hey, we can move this asset and tokenize it, but we can do things with tokenization of financial products that couldn't be done easily on traditional rails or other specific protocols. Examples are reducing the frequency of interest payments or movements of money. We stream everything in our live data. There's no reason why money can't simply move at that same rate. The obstacles, of course, are the financial fees that relate to, and/or throughput that relate to any of these movements of money. But when you chip away at those and use a different layer, then all of a sudden you can stream money, you can do things that really are quite innovative, and I think that's where we're going, being able to prove why tokenization is to the benefit of an institution and a user.
I think Gregg is really growing into a superstar in the Hedera ecosystem, and I was really happy to see what he did with Canary Capital, bringing that HBAR-based fund to market. Of course, that's going to be listed on the Nasdaq, and I hope that's a precursor for ETFs, whether that's basketed ETFs or HBAR-focused ETFs. I think that's something to be really excited about for the future. But it's the financial markets in general. They need an overhaul. They need more trust. They need more efficiency. They need more transparency. And DLTs are purpose-built for that, but it has to be the right DLT. And I think Hedera is perfect for it. They have the throughput. They have the security. They have the time to finality. They have the governance to add the necessary trust to bring these enterprises on who currently facilitate these financial markets. And I think Gregg is the right guy to lead us in that direction. So the next thing I want to get on, I want to offer a congratulations to Dropp. So this is another traditional industry, but Dropp is doing something that's completely new, and that's micropayments. Now, they've been added to the Circle Alliance. Circle is the stablecoin company responsible for USDC, and it's great to see Dropp included in this alliance where I'm sure tons of innovation is going to be found in the future. Another exciting thing that was announced recently is PAC staking. So, of course, PAC is the native token for the HashPAC wallet, the most popular wallet in the Hedera space. So if you want to stake, of course, the first step is going to be to get some of that PAC, and you can get that on SaucerSwap. And then the next steps are pretty simple. There is a tab in the HashPAC wallet, and you can tap on that and enter the amount of PAC you wish to stake, and then tap on the stake button. And then you'll be issued XPAC. XPAC is going to increase in terms of PAC at a fixed rate of that 5%. Unstaking is just as simple, and that's all you have to do to realize those gains. So if you do have any PAC, it's pretty much a no-brainer. Now we're going to move on to Karate Combat. There was so much buzz around Karate Combat last week, not just because they put on another fantastic show at Karate Combat 50, but because they are going to introduce the first Layer 2 onto Hedera called Up to expand that Up-only gaming ecosystem. And we got a hold of Only LARPing again to explain that and what they have coming in the future. Only LARPing, welcome back after the success you've had in the past few events as one of the masterminds behind Up Only Gaming. You have to be really proud.
Yeah, it was an awesome event, man. You never know how these things are going to go ahead of time. It really went perfectly almost. And then on top of it, we had a huge announcement on the same day. I don't know why we do these things to ourselves. It always seems like a good idea ahead of time, you know. Oh, there'll be so much buzz on KC socials. Might as well announce it the same day. Of course, like when you get to that day, you're like, what the hell was I thinking?
Well, either way, it was an exciting day. I had a blast following everything that was going on. And if anybody's curious about what Up Only Gaming is and what Karate Combat is doing, of course, we had that first interview that we did where we did a deep dive into all that kind of stuff. But I want to talk about that announcement you made around Up Layer 2 on Hedera. Can you just tell us about what's going to launch in the months to come and the strategy behind it?
Yeah, of course. So you asked me what's going to launch in the months to come. We announced on Friday that in Q1, Up, which is a layer 2 on Hedera, will be launching. I think the strategy behind it, is a longer convo. And I walked through a lot of this in my article. So over the last, year or so, we've had a decent number of projects from really all sorts, all walks of life, reach out to us and say, hey, we like what you're doing with Up Only Gaming. Is there any chance we could use it? We could license it. We could copy it, which is interesting to us for a number of reasons. The more we thought about it, the more we realized how intrinsically motivated we are to spread Up Only Gaming. First of all, like from a broad cultural education standpoint, everyone in the world knows what gambling is essentially. And you could round it down to almost no one knowing about what Up Only Gaming is. A few 100,000 people really understand how it works. We're not going to be able to get Up Only Gaming in the dictionary on our own next year. If we can get 10 or 100 other projects with real fan bases launching their own versions of Up Only Gaming, it can become a real thing in the global kind of like mind space much more rapidly, which would be great for education and marketing and customer acquisition. And then more directly, if we could design the system correctly on our own, we should be able to easily share users with these other sports or esports or whatever projects, right? So very motivated on that front. Also, a little bit, maybe more subtly, from a crypto capital market standpoint, karate is very unique. It's sort of trailblazing, but it's sort of on an island. I think you want to be the first in a category, but you don't want to be the only. You do eventually want that category on CoinGecko for like Up Only Gaming tokens or something like that, right? If you look at GameFi, they have funds, they have newsletters, they have podcasts, they have Twitter spaces, you name it. Up Only Gaming doesn't have any of that. If we can bring in 100 other projects, that will all develop on its own, which would be huge for us. So that's sort of like the intrinsic motivations behind it. Obviously, there's also the way we did it. There's also a financial motivation. We announced a plan to launch an Up token sometime next year, and a large portion of those tokens are going to go back to the karate token holders, which the founders and investors and contributors to Karate Combat all own a decent amount of. So that's sort of the reasoning behind it.
Well, I definitely want to dive more into that token itself, but a big part of this Up, from what I understand, is to broaden the scope of participants by opening up this Up-only gaming concept to other networks and communities. Can you explain how that's going to happen?
Sure. So I think when you look at the value prop, hopefully it's almost obvious. So what Up allows us to do is give away everything we've built on the software side for free. We spent 2.5 years building a product that works very well at scale, services over 100,000 users. The UX is one of the best in consumer crypto. People really seem to be enjoying it. It seems to be fulfilling our original purpose, which is to convert like casual awareness about the league into real super fandom. So number one, Up allows us to give this software away to them for free in a sustainable way. Number two, it should allow us to easily share our users with them. So we said one of the motivations is getting users for them, but when you think about why they're going to join, they're going to be looking at our 100,000 plus players and saying, hey, can you like help us get a head start here and share many of those with us? And I think the answer is the way we're designing it, we can. And then lastly, with the eventual launch of a token for the Up Network, we should have the capacity to actually give grants to some of these projects, right? Which, can really help throw kind of fuel on the fire. I think originally, like early on, maybe it looks more like a points program, like pre-token launch. And then eventually we're able to give real grants to real projects to onboard onto Up Only Gaming. So hopefully that value prop is good enough that we have a decent amount of inbound, but it also means we need to execute on marketing and BD as well.
Well, you guys have no problem executing on marketing. I think you're one of the best in the Web3 space. I will say that it's very rare that I'll hear a vision that, even if it sounds fantastic, it actually works on me, where I see it come to fruition and exactly what they wanted to see happen actually happens in my case. But creating a super fan is exactly what you've done with me.
Yeah.
I loved the sport from the beginning. When I first started seeing it, I'm like, this is filling that perfect niche. And it's been mentioned before, between boxing and MMA. But then once I actually participated in Up Only Gaming and got that little bit of skin in the game, got that incentive to do that little bit of extra research. That's what it was in the beginning when I had a few $1,000s in,
Yeah.
and I've just added since then, and it's just worked perfectly. I have become a super fan. Last week I was on vacation, and I don't want anybody to think that I was taking time away from my family. We were going through that hurricane. I was actually down in Florida,
No.
and but it turned out fine. But 10 hours during one of those days, I was sitting there and doing research while my family was doing other stuff, just waiting for the storm to pass, on these different fighters. And I had a pretty successful outing this last time, but I'm completely on the edge of my seat for every single one of these events. And I think it can do the exact same thing for other sports as well. You've mentioned a little bit of this, but I'd like to do a deeper dive into how this benefits karate combat in itself, but also, how does this benefit Hedera, this layer 2 built on Hedera? I just wanted to do a little bit of a deeper dive into those concepts.
Sure. So I think for karate combat, it's really about, if you assume for a second that Up Only Gaming works, right? Then what you want to do is onboard as many people to it as possible to grow the sport as fast as possible, so we can build this UFC for striking, and we can go just that much faster. So I think that that's really the trick there. Obviously, the karate token holders have this additional incentive that they're can expect to get tokens from the Up network. But when you think about the sport itself, it's really about supercharging kind of the Up Only Gaming growth engine with real sports fans and esports fans and stuff like that. So I think that's the karate combat side of things mostly. That's the biggest part of it. You can also, frankly, this is a little bit more out there, but I think it will happen. There's a lot of things that you can build on top of Up Only Gaming. It's sort of like a new primitive in crypto. And we have lots of ideas for cool applications that can kind of be built on top of it by third-party builders. Karate Combat itself, with one event a month, it may not be quite big enough yet for a developer to go and kind of spend all their time building an application on top of it. But if you can bring on tens of other projects, and there's Up Only Gaming events every day using the same smart contracts, then it starts to make a ton of sense for people to build applications on top of it. I could give some examples. So Karate Combat's the only sport in the world where the athletes have any on-chain earnings, which is pretty interesting because that means someone could go and securitize that with an NFT or a fighter token. Also, right now, Up Only Gaming is almost wholesome, right? You're winning a couple percent more tokens. You're not losing anything. There's a lot of people out there in the world that want to do things that are much more degen. Someone could build, we thought about this a lot actually this past week. Someone could build sort of like a swap so that they could lever up their Up Only Gaming. So they could pay a lender of karate a fixed return. Maybe they're paying kind of like, it could be a fixed fee, right? Like a 1% a month fee. So they're paying out a fixed return in return to get a variable return. Basically, what they're doing is borrowing a bunch of karate for the chance to play it. And there's so many things like that. We put a bunch of examples into the article that we wrote. We also think some of the DeFi primitives themselves could be tweaked a little bit to just embrace the culture of Up Only Gaming, like a DEX with a sweepstakes feature or something. So that I think could be really meaningful. If there's additional ways to engage with Up Only Gaming that doesn't all need to come from the core team. You could even see someone build a super app that kind of services all the Up Only Gaming apps, or maybe someone wants to build a gambling platform on top of it, that's just really easily plugged into all these things. So I think that's a big kind of non-obvious benefit of Up. And then when you go to the Hedera side of things, I think it's multiple. Right now, Karate Combat is I would say, very successful use case on Hedera. But wouldn't it be cool if there was 100 of us? So, and we're really bringing an engine to make that happen by giving the software away for free, giving our users out, by giving grants and a new native token. And so we think we have this engine that can exist on top of Hedera to onboard 100 projects. And yeah, so I think that's the biggest benefit. When you look at the specifics of how the L2 is built, it pays all the fees in HBAR. It all settles to Hedera. It should onboard lots of users to the main chain. And then lastly, this was mentioned in the press release, but not talked. A couple things not talked about too much on socials. I didn't see. Number one, we've committed that 10% of the up supply will go to incentivize DeFi protocols on Hedera, staking to up, some HBAR weighted airdrops. So there should be like some nice goodies there. And then lastly is HStack, which I don't think I saw anyone talk about. Since we're going and building our own L2 on Hedera, there's some quirks to that. You can't just use off the shelf software. So since we're going and doing the work, we're going to open source that to allow anybody else that wants to launch an L2 on Hedera to do so very easily. Like right now on Ethereum, could like sort of almost like click a button and deploy an L2. And so the idea is to get it almost that easy on Hedera.
Good stuff. That's exactly what we want to hear. Now, using the up layer 2, you're going to be able to launch these tokens on other networks as well. So if there's a league or a sports team that wants to have up only gaming on their matches and they wanted to have it on Solana or on another network, they're going to be able to do that. How does that mechanism work, on top of this layer 2?
So I think the important thing there is that the UX that has made Karate Combat successful needs to be maintained. And so there's a decent amount of integration work that needs to happen. And it may be different for different networks, but from a user perspective, those users with tokens on Solana or whatever would be sending their tokens to their app. This is not the Karate Combat app, but it's a version of the Karate Combat app reskinned and changed for this project that lives on Solana. They would just be sending Solana tokens to a Solana wallet in that app. They'd press a button to play, and it was essentially like wrap and stake those tokens to up.
Okay.
So it'd lock them on the Solana side. Synthetic would be kind of minted on the upside.
Okay, I understand. That makes sense. So the next thing I want to touch on is you mentioned that Karate token holders are going to benefit a fair amount from the initial launch of UP. They're going to get, from what I heard, 30% of the tokens. What does that mechanism look like of how they're going to get that 30% and over, what period of time?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's over at least a few years. It's a huge chunk of supply. The exact mechanism is not decided yet. I think the ideal mechanism is actually through up only gaming. We'll see if we can pull it off because there's like some tax questions that need to be answered there specifically. But if not, some sort of like staking mechanism.
All right, so staying with Karate token holders, because I have a lot of Karate token holders that watch my show, how will Karate token holders benefit from future up-only gaming tokens that launch? I know there's going to be variable and it's going to be up to each team to see how much they want to benefit, but this kind of goes into how you share users, right?
Yeah, I think that's a really open question, and it'll be up to those projects. They won't be required to, do an airdrop to Karate token holders, but why wouldn't they, right? They're trying to onboard all these people. So you may have seen we have a questing module in the app already. It's not fully built out. We built it out for the season and per event rewards, and it's taking a little bit of a backseat to everything we're talking to today. But through that module, like any other project, we'll be able to incentivize Karate token holders to come over and play this new app, download and play the new app. And you would think they'd probably do that with tokens usually.
It's a great strategy. All right, so the last thing that I want to ask you is, how does this look over the next, we'll say, 8 months through H1 of 2025?
Yeah.
How is Karate Combat and UP going to work together to actually get this thing launched and get this thing moving?
Yeah, so everything's underway. The part that's really hard is maintaining the user experience to the level we have today. So we're also changing a couple big things about up on the gaming. First of all, we're moving from snapshot based to staking, which allows us to onboard users when an event is announced, and then all the way up to and including the event itself. So you'll be able to buy tokens during the event, stake them and play, which is huge. It's one of the biggest missing pieces here. It'll also allow us to vary the tokenomics so that long-term stakers, people who are on streaks, people who participate in governance can get increased vote weights inside the game itself. So you can kind of like, encourage people to hold and play and all of that for higher rewards. That also allows us to in turn supercharge the affiliate program if we do it right, where people are staking to affiliates that have been like long-term players, and maybe like the 20% VIG kind of like washes itself out that way. And so like doing that all at the same time, maintaining the user experience as we move to the L2, it's a lot of work. Also cleaning up all our code to allow it to be like modular and shareable with other projects is a decent amount of work. So what we think we can do is kind of launch everything by the end of Q1, and then I imagine either in advance of the launch of the network or concurrent with it, we'll launch a points program and up to start to onboard a bunch of other projects, and then sometime next year we'll launch the token. That part, it'll really be dependent upon success. You only get to launch the token once. Ideally, you're launching it on kind of the biggest exchanges in the world. We've been through a token launch once already. We have a lot of lessons learned, and so that kind of token launch is not a rush.
All right. Well, I said that was going to be my last question, but I am curious about one more thing. And I know you're not going to be able to give details here, but what are the potential leagues that we could have on board here, or different teams that we could onboard here? I know you're not going to be able to give, the exact team. We're not going to hear, Manchester United or the NBA or a WNBA.
Yeah, it's not going to be those guys up front, I don't think. I think when we started doing the research, one thing that was like immediately apparent based on the people who reached out to us is that the market is a lot bigger than it sounds like when you first hear about it. There's something like 60,000 sports leagues out there or something. And so that means there's probably like 1 million sports teams or something, right? And then there's esports, and there's fantasy sports apps, there's gambling apps, there's meme projects that maybe want to rerun hamster racing. And so I think the potential market size is just way larger than people like when they first hear the idea think about it. Like when they first hear the idea, they're like, oh, like are you really going to be able to get the NBA? Or like,
sure.
Well, probably not up front, to be honest, but it doesn't matter, right? We just need like, I don't know, 10 projects or something, right? Like, and then grow it to 100, So I think that it's going to be more niche sports, more kind of non-US sports, because there is a crypto angle here and people do have concerns about crypto in general. I think we'll get some esports projects, some meme coins, and it'll be pretty varied. And I think it'll be pretty good.
Well, I love the vision. I've been having a blast with Karate Combat. Again, congratulations on all the success you've had to this point. And again, thank you for building on Hedera.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Karate Combat and Up are catching the attention of all kinds of celebrities in the space. We've had Joe Rogan, we've had Mario Newfall, even the presidential candidate RFK showed up at one of the events. And this just continues with the things that they're introducing on a regular basis. And I have a couple new examples from this week. We had a VC firm called Bitcraft Ventures who said, we're excited to see Up Player 2 used as a gateway to access Karate Combat's tech, which is already empowering one of the fastest growing sports leagues in the world. Over 100,000 users are making fight predictions on-chain through a convenient mobile app. And another one that was noticed was from Jakey. Now, for anybody that doesn't know who this is, Jakey is the founder of Jupiter, the massively popular DEX on Solana. He said, I personally think Karate Combat is one of the coolest things to happen, and he's talking about how Karate Combat is making these crypto events a lot more fun. He said, I personally think Karate Combat is one of the coolest things to happen to these crypto events. It's unique and literally fun for everyone, and provides an opportunity for crypto people to test new waters in front of an audience. This setup is incredibly well done. The team is awesome. I'm excited to get in the pit ASAP. And another thing that I love about the Up platform is it's showing that Karate Combat is doubling down on Hedera. Like Jakey said, this is a really strong team. They could go in any direction they want. All of these networks are drooling over Karate Combat, but Hedera is just working. There are benefits to other networks as far as liquidity, but we can make that up as long as we have these fantastic teams that continue to build great products like what we see coming out of Karate Combat. All right, so I am going to move on to another fun one. We have Dead Pixels, one of the most popular NFT projects on Hedera, and you can hear the passion coming from Will, one of their co-founders, in this next clip. And I think you'll agree that his excitement is pretty infectious. Will, welcome. Thanks for hopping on today.
Thanks, Brandon. Great to be here.
So before we get into your project, I love a good origin story. So how did you get involved with Hedera in the first place?
Yeah, so we actually have our co-founder, Ray, to thank for that. So there's three of us who work on the project, myself, Raf, and then Ray. And about 4 years ago, Ray discovered Hedera. He went down the rabbit hole, and his energy and excitement about it was infectious. And sure enough, me and Raf jumped in headfirst as well. And the rest is history. It was hard. It was hard not to get involved real quick.
Yeah, well, I mean, I say that all the time, that it's hard to be involved with Hedera and not want to build something. So now let's get into your project. Where did the concept for Dead Pixels come from, and why did you decide to launch it?
Yeah, so the three of us, we've been friends for a really long time, going on a couple decades now. And in the past, we had worked on a creative project that we really enjoyed. We did that for almost 10 years, I want to say. And as we were getting into Hedera, even before we started kind of really diving headfirst into the Hedera community, the three of us had started talking again about how we were really getting that itch to start a creative project again. And we were exploring, what is it that we want to do? What is the medium? What type of audiences do we want to grow? And so the timing ended up being perfect that as we were really getting into the meat of these discussions, NFTs started to emerge on Hedera, and that technology to start, launching NFT projects on Hedera emerged. And it, that connection obviously came real quick. We decided this is something we're really excited about. We were enjoying collecting. So yeah, I mean, the rest is history in terms of like the form and the medium of the Dead Pixels collection. We didn't necessarily set out knowing that ghosts were going to be the character right away. Usually our creative process is a lot of trial and error. Raf is our main artist. So much to his dismay, a lot of it is, him trying out something, sending it to us tweaking, and then deciding, no, we're going to throw this out and go to the next one. But once we kind of got to that main ghost design, it was kind of like an instant. We knew that this was it. We were all excited about it, and we went from there.
Well, one of my favorite things about the Dead Pixels art is that it can kind of stand alone. A lot of times, it'll just be the bust or just from the head up, but being able to stand alone allows it to be easily used in memes and clips and things along those lines. So was that by design, or was that just a happy byproduct of the art that came out?
Yeah, I actually love it when people notice that. So that was a little bit of both. We love the design with the full body of the ghost, but personally, we kind of preferred PFPs as shoulders up. So a lot of people will notice, like the three of us, we use our ghost when we do it as a PFP, we crop it at the shoulders to kind of have like that head and shoulders look. But we decided we kind of use the term future-proof our collection. We wanted to have the NFT itself be the full ghost. Just because as you start kind of letting your imagination run of what NFTs are going to be able to do and all of the ecosystems built around NFTs, just that idea that someone's going to be able to take their ghost and immerse it into some other world that someone's created, that got us excited. And so, yeah, having the full image of the ghost definitely played a part in, the way we ultimately decided to roll out the design.
So I'm curious about one more thing. Coming up with the art is one part of it, but this is about creating a community and keeping people engaged and things along those lines. What else goes into maintaining a community like this around an NFT collection?
Ooh, how much time do you have, Brandon? To me, that's like one of the most interesting, fun things to talk about. I can geek about that stuff all day. To us, we really view it when we started on this project. We spent a lot of time looking at, because Hedera had kind of started with NFTs a little bit later than some of the chains. We kind of had the advantage to look at some of these other chains and try to like really drill down into, what is it within our space? And I'm speaking specifically to art collectible NFTs, which was the space that we decided to enter into for NFTs. We started to really try to dig down, like what is what is at the heart of what gets people excited to collect NFTs. And essentially we broke it down into the art, the brand, and then we call it kind of the voice that the project gives around that brand. And so obviously, like each project, there's lots of different ways you can do it. What we try to do is create a voice that is just fun and entertaining and something that people just feel like this is a community that's just having a good time and they enjoy the art that they're collecting. And we really wanted to keep that the main focus. And I think having that laser focus, I think it's helped us along the way. So it's a broad question. I could go for hours, but I'd probably drill down to that as the main point of the things that we focused on.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. So the next few weeks is going to be a pretty big deal for the Dead Pixels collection. Can you tell us why that is and how people are going to be able to get involved?
Yeah, for sure. So we're having our final drop, what we're calling Drop 5. For anyone that might not be aware, we took the approach of releasing our project in staggered drops. So we didn't release all the NFTs at one time. And so we've had 4 drops so far, and now this is going to be our final drop. This is going to be the largest one. And the dynamic for this last drop is going to be that it's all whitelist minting, and the only way to mint is holding a ghost or a ghost pass. So holding one of the NFTs from our collection will automatically guarantee you a mint in this upcoming mint on the 21st of October. So yeah, we're really excited. It's a big mint. I will just quickly touch on, there's been kind of, understandably, there's been questions about why a big mint in the middle of this type of atmosphere in the market. And so something that we've been sharing, and we're going to share a lot more information very soon, is there's dynamics within the project that we've been alluding to for quite some time. We've been referring to it as Ghost City, but a lot more details to come soon. But this is something that, back to your question in terms of what drives community and what drives interest in NFTs, this is something we've been working on since the beginning because we've really been trying to explore that question of what gives a project longevity. What is it that attracts people to an NFT project? And in our mind, NFTs, there's kind of one thing that we felt was missing because art collectible NFTs, we compare to trading cards a lot of times, outside of Web3. And we felt like trading cards had one major element that currently NFTs don't. And so we've been kind of working on what we feel like is our solution for that addresses that particular issue. And it's something we're really excited about rolling out. But in order to get there, the final mint needed to happen. And we felt like, actually the energy and the excitement about us potentially doing a drop actually was starting to be there. We were excited about getting this out. And so here we are. We're excited, and we've actually been blown away by the response. The energy and the enthusiasm has been outstanding. So we're excited. Can't wait for 21st to get here.
Well, I'm excited about it as well. One more thing before I let you go. That whitelist and actually activating it, is that going to be through your own website? Is that going to be through Centex? How do people actually do that?
Yeah, great question. So we're going to be releasing all the details within the next couple of days. Essentially, the mint system that we've come up with, we've really simplified the process. It's just going to be directly in your wallet. It's just going to be a transfer of HBAR to our minting wallet, which will instantly trigger the transfer of your ghost back to your wallet. It'll all be in your wallet. All the details will be up soon. And all you have to do, you just have to have your ghost in your wallet. There's no you don't have to do anything to activate your whitelist or anything like that. If you have the ghost in your wallet, you'll be able to mint. You're ready to go.
I love to hear removing friction like that. But, Will, as I have said in the past, your project is one of my favorite NFT projects on Hedera. I have my ghost. I have it ready. And, as soon as those rules come out or those instructions come out, I'll be ready to do it as well. Thanks for hopping on today.
That's great. I appreciate it, Brandon. Yeah, it was fun to come on and chat with you. Appreciate the time.
So I do want to go over the details for this mint. It begins in just a few days on October 21st. Wait until the announcement goes out from Dead Pixels. The mint is whitelist only, as Will mentioned. Each ghost in your wallet will act as one reserved whitelist spot. Each ghost pass will equal 2, and you'll have until the end of the year to use those whitelist spots. The minting process will be pretty simple and done directly in your wallet. They chose this simplified system to prevent errors that can arise from high-volume mints or mirror node issues. Once the mint opening announcement has gone out, you'll just send 800 HBAR to their minting wallet. That's 0.0.1303581, and that'll instantly trigger the transfer of a ghost into your wallet. And you'll see that ghost as soon as you refresh. And they do put out a warning to be cautious of impersonation accounts, which I'm sure are going to pop up all over the place. I love the fact that they're allowing you to do this from your wallet. And you might have noticed that we had a knight on our thumbnail for this video, and that came from one of the NFTs from the Citadel wallet. They put out NFTs to pre-order their hardware wallet. Well, something nice came up this past week. They have actually put out the claim NFTs for those Citadel wallets. And the nice thing about that, a lot of the hardware wallets out there don't support a lot of HTS tokens. They don't support NFTs. And Citadel wallet, being a native hardware wallet for Hedera, supports all that kind of stuff. So you can check it out if you did get one of those Knights of the Citadel NFTs and you want to get your hardware wallet. So we're going to move from wallets into SocialFi. We have two SocialFi teams that have been absolutely killing it. One of them is the HBARK game. I've been having a blast playing that, but I almost missed something that was pretty important. A couple of weeks ago, all of the winnings from Season 1 of the HBARK game could be claimed, but it didn't seem like everybody claimed in time, so they extended that period. I was actually on vacation last week and I missed this. Luckily, they are extending it, but only until tomorrow, Saturday the 19th. So if you did win any HBARK in the first season, make sure to go on and claim it. It's really simple to do. I just did it a few days ago. And with that, I'm looking forward to getting into Season 2. The other SocialFi team we have is The Mouth. They are experts at tokenomics, and they announced something this past week. So the driver for the Mouth project is their 6% custom fee on Mouth transactions. 1.5% goes to their project wallet, and up until this point, 0.5% went into 3 different core builders' wallets. Well, that's changing. That 0.5% is now going to be burned. They said, yep, you read that right. 0.5% of every Mouth token transaction will be burned forever. One of the ways I look at the Mouth is they are a test bed for tokenomics for the rest of the ecosystem, so we certainly thank them for that. And now I want to get into the Hedera Gaming ecosystem. We're going to start off with Circle of Games. Now, I know people get nervous about announcements, but they did say that there's going to be some big news dropping pretty soon. Now, I don't have any details on this, but I'm going to try to get an interview lined up for when they do want to announce it. We did see a picture of the president of the Hashgraph Association, Kamal, in Dubai with representatives from Deca 4 and Circle of Games themselves. I also want to mention that Earthlings continues to put out some great content and teasers. I play their sidekick game Steam Runner daily, but I want to hold off on going into too much detail about that until the team is completely ready. That said, when I talk about teams that are passionate, talented, driven, and won't be denied, Earthlings is one of the very top on my list. So I do believe in the Earthlings team and the products that they're bringing to market. I do want to give full disclosure, though. I am an official advisor for the Earthlings team. Just want to make sure that was clear for everybody. But without further ado, I want to get into Shark Bites. We had some great questions this week. Now, Rob couldn't go into as much detail on all of them as he would like to, but he still had some fantastic insights. So let's get into it. All right, Rob, welcome back. How's life in Hedera world been treating you since I've been away?
Yeah, hey Brandon. Well, it's never a dull day, of course. There's so many things going on, so it keeps me busy and out of mischief. I'm away for the next 2 weeks after this, so I've been trying to kind of cram in as much as possible. So let's get into the questions.
All right, fair enough. Did you catch the Karate Combat buzz last week?
Oh, the buzz was incredible, wasn't it? I did. I didn't participate because I was doing other things at the time. I kind of missed the cut-off. But the layer 2, the up-only layer is super exciting. None of us really imagined that we would need a layer 2 on Hedera, but the actual case for having one for up, I think, is super, super strong. Very exciting about how that draws in other projects to use these great new capabilities. And I think it's actually a very, very valid use case for a layer 2 on Hedera, the first one. Awesome.
It's going to be fun to watch. It's really interesting. I had a really long conversation with Andy Larping. He doesn't take anything lightly. He pays an awful lot of attention to this stuff. Even though he's a super laid back guy, he's really sharp, and I think he has a really good strategy on his hands.
Yeah, and I think I understand they came up with this concept themselves. You know, it's not as if it's something that's been pushed on them by, you know, the Hedera community or the foundation. They actually worked through the value proposition of a layer 2, still on Hedera, still kind of utilizing the base trust layer of the Hedera mainnet. Yeah, really excited to see how this works out. I wouldn't bet against them, that's for sure. I mean, their marketing genius and their engagement from almost nothing a very short while ago to what they've got now is incredible. So yeah, certainly a flagship project for the Hedera ecosystem.
I couldn't agree more, and I'm a super fan with everything that's going on there. But let's jump into these questions. The first one comes from HBAR.Grelf, who asks, "Hi HBAR Bull. Earlier this year, Rob talked about new governing council members that were going to be added, but there hasn't been any new members announced for a long time. Is it possible to get an update on this?" Rob, of course, we get this question an awful lot, but it has been a little while since we've discussed the pipeline. So can you give us your insights?
Yeah, the pipeline's still strong. Like I always say, the timing of announcements is outside of the council because, there are market integrity aspects to knowing the announcement. So, there's never any knowledge around that. The process, of course, is the candidates get presented into the membership committee. The relative benefits and are discussed. These days we discuss the use cases as well. And if it gets the support of the membership committee, then it goes to the council for a vote. And the council knows that there is a strong pipeline coming. I can't say any more than that, but we will be well served, I think, over the course of the next few months and year.
All right, that's good to hear. We'll be waiting with bated breath. So HBAR for Life has the next one. He says, "No doubt Hedera's technology is superior over many DLTs, but HBAR sentiments have been weak for the past several months. How would you encourage investors to come in and stay when there are almost no incentives being offered?"
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to talk about investors because I see this as a technology platform for utility and usage. Sentiment was low earlier in the year, and there's no doubt about that. And I guess we all know, the reasons for that. But I actually detect a turning of the corner. I detect, the sentiments changing. There's often a lag, in sentiment, against fact. And we all have to work very hard on building and delivering and driving, the metrics that people hold dear. So I'd say more utility is going to change it. I mean, things like Karate Combat, like we just talked about, we shouldn't ignore some of the amazing use cases. You see them week in, week out. You're putting all this great content out. I don't think any other layer 1 has that huge and broad variety of different use cases. And sometimes it's easy to kind of focus on the downside of certain things and ignore all the great use cases that are coming along. So I do detect a change. I think there are green shoots. I think the cyclical nature of the Web3 space, is about to turn as well, and that always makes things look a bit rosier. So hold the course, hold the line, and I think things will fairly soon get a whole lot better.
Well, I do think that, some trust needs to be regained, but when I talk to these builders that you're talking about, whether it's only LARPing with Karate Combat, whether it's Jeremy with Cast Capital, I was just having a conversation with Jesse around Twigital today. We have so many, whether it's Centex or Earthlings, you can just go down the line of all these great teams. And these teams will not be denied. They are going to be successful. And if they're successful, I believe that Hedera is going to be successful in turn. So, that's where I kind of get my solace.
And it's all about the commerciality of these projects, right? So, the platform is the platform. Hedera, provides these services. The ability for founders and corporates to use those services in a way which is actually gives them a commercial advantage is entirely on them. And then you'll have good ones and you'll have bad ones, and we'll back both on this journey. And there's, we don't often, or over the last few weeks, we haven't often spoken about the sustainability use cases, but that really is a key differentiator, and some of the things that the Sustainable Impact Fund under Wes have been putting in place is really going to move the needle. And most of our community aren't focused in that space, but there is a lot going on in the sustainability space, in addition to everything else that we've been all the seeds we've been planting over the last 2 years. So I think we're in a pretty good place. It's very easy to dwell on the negative sentiment in an echo chamber, but take a step back and look at the broad field of what we've done, and compare. By all means, go and compare to other layer ones. And if your only metric is about price but not utility, then maybe the focus is wrong, because over time utility will win. I have no doubt about that.
Well, Rob, that is a question. There's a kind of a proven way that these networks can become sustainable. Now, it is mostly based on speculation, but we have networks like Solana and Ethereum and Bitcoin that are sustainable right now based off of the fees that they have. But it's kind of that casino-esque, all based off of speculation. But it seems like that is possible to be sustainable, because there's always going to be people, the degens out there, that want to participate in that.
Yeah.
The utility side of it, the enterprise use cases, that hasn't quite proven itself as a sustainable model at this point. So what are your thoughts around that?
But it has to over the longer term. Otherwise, the short-termist focus of degens will just move between different platforms, right? And they'll go wherever the return is. To be a 100-year network, you've got to have a medium and long-term outlook. That's not to say that we don't address the near-term kind of bridge from retail paying the bills to corporates and enterprise and market tested utility paying the bills. So that there's that bridge, and we need to ensure that we don't lose the community in that journey towards the bigger, brighter, scaled future, where everyone's building on Hedera and they don't know it yet. So that's the tricky conundrum that is currently playing out. Have we got it right? I don't think we've got it right perfectly, but it's a matter of great discussion. I know it's something that Charles is very focused on. So tweaks and improvements and learnings have got to be applied over the coming months and year or so, I would think.
Well, I'm confident that we're going to get there. Now, we had a few.
Me too.
On Atma.io, for example, Perfect Ability asks, Atma has been down for a while. What's going on? That's a really simple way to put it. There's been all kinds of variations on that question. But do you have any insights around that?
Unfortunately not. I don't know is the answer to this. We all kind of focused on that number. Hedera and the Governing Council have no oversight of Avery Dennis and the Governing Council members' commercial arrangements and commercial decisions and use of the network and how and what they do and when. We see that transaction volume going up and down regularly, but we've not seen it this flat for so long. So my answer is sorry, I don't know. It would be for Atma to actually make any announcement, or the foundation to as well. So when that happens, I'm sure we'll all be aware of what's going on. But fingers crossed it's for good reasons.
Well, from what I understand, it is pretty much off right now. But one thing that I have noticed, even though sometimes people will look and they'll see it going along at 1 or 4 transactions per second, but I have seen spikes up to 40, and we don't have, the old high volume use case in AdSense that we used to have. We don't have Atma.io live right now. So, it's pretty heartening to see some of those spikes up to several dozen TPS, just on the background transactions that we have going on.
Yeah. There are a lot of, there's a lot more utility than there was even a year ago, 2 years ago. Remember, even one TPS is quite a lot of use. It's one transaction a second. I know it doesn't sound very much, but 40 actually, with at a consistent level, or 100 or 1,000, it's incredible amount of usage, real world usage. These big use cases like Archax and the real world asset tokenization ones aren't high throughput use cases. We laud them, but they're not. That metric isn't the metric that actually addresses all of the great utility on, I would say, the vast majority of the projects. So one of the things that that we're looking at Corpcom is what the metrics should be. TPS is only one, but what are the other metrics where maybe we're hiding some of the great utility that is happening on the network by only focusing on that one thing? And I've got and I'm working with some of the members of the community. I mentioned a few weeks ago that Brady from Bonzo's open letter to the community kind of sparked some thinking in Corpcom and the Governing Council. And so we're kind of working through what that might be in terms of new metrics, new things that we need to focus on. And I'll be presenting that to the Governing Council next month.
All right, good to hear. Well, you mentioned Archax, and we did actually have a question around Archax. It came from Chi House, who asks, how does the BlackRock tokenization of funds on Hedera by Archax compare to the tokenization of BlackRock funds on other chains like Ethereum? Has it proved to be a better option to choose Hedera through Archax?
Yeah, it's another question I can't answer because I don't fully understand the decisions being made on other networks. I would say it's probably down to liquidity. That would be normally the reason to go to another network, such as Ethereum. But generally, I suspect that they're fairly standard smart contracts that they're both using. Remember, the Archax platform has tokenized money market funds from the likes of BlackRock. So the Archax platform allows for that. And that's a great solution. It's a scalable solution. The tokenization of money market funds is actually a really good innovation on stablecoins. So it provides a yield-bearing token, which can be used like a stablecoin. And I think and I've heard down in Australia, quite a lot of talk of doing that as well as we move towards a regulatory clarity around use of digital currencies and stablecoins. So again, commercial decisions using one network over another, one would hope that the decisions are made objectively for that particular organization's use case. It might be informed by the fact that their developers are more Ethereum or Solidity or particular network kind of experienced. But with our asset tokenization studio now, I've taken some time to look at that, and it's an amazing innovation on top of Hedera that should open doors to all sorts of other organizations coming in and wanting to build real world assets on Hedera in a way that is very, very easy. And then the likes of Archax, which have got the might of Aberdeen behind them, pushing and innovating and developing on that particular theme. I feel that we have almost a kind of strategic approach to delivering real-world asset tokenization on Hedera, which no other network has. And the selection of a layer one is kind of team-based for those other projects, whereas Hedera, there's a kind of a go-to-market kind of approach around the delivery of the asset tokenization, and real-world asset tokenization being a real core theme, I think, developing for Hedera.
Well, there's one real-world asset tokenization use case that I just covered a few weeks ago, and that's Cask Capital. They had a challenge. They wanted to figure out how to fractionalize those whiskey casks because apparently the investment in that is a pretty big deal over in the UK, but they wanted to democratize it and spread it throughout the rest of the world, which obviously could be a really big market for them. And I'm not sure how many sales of the full casks they had, but now they've figured out how to legally fractionalize those casks, and they've had 2 sellouts already on 2 casks. So I've been really impressed with that. But then I was asking, how does the rest of the Web3 work together? And because they have to follow the regulation, whatever jurisdiction people are in, they have to be of age to buy alcohol to be able to participate in this. So they have to do KYC. Right now, that's done through their site. They were talking about doing KYC partnerships with other sites that might be able to trade the same tokens, but they weren't actually aware of the fact that you can KYC natively through Hedera, and their developers were really happy to hear that, and they're already looking into it. What are your thoughts around that KYC, which we don't talk about that very often, except for one of the taglines for Hedera that you could do KYC. But here's an instance where it could really be beneficial for a business, and we're taking it into that real world asset tokenization space.
Yeah, I think it's essential, especially where there is either variable regulatory application of law across different jurisdictions, of course. So, KYC is kind of a common denominator. Know your customer, being able to capture the information that the regulators would require you to in various jurisdictions. So that makes sense. I don't know how Cast Capital are doing it. The native layer comment you made was, we have a KYC flag on our tokens. So, you can set that when you design and
Sure.
create the tokens. So that in and of itself doesn't do the KYC, but it kind of is the hook, if you like, into a KYC process that you would then implement. So that's it really is, for a real world business, let's say a Web 2.5 business, that needs to operate in the real world and has to interact with regulators and wants to do the right thing, wants to stay in business, then you can't avoid KYC. And so the KYC processes need to be in place, especially in where you're dealing with what either are or could be construed as financial products. And so, it makes perfect sense. And Hedera can do that in a number of different ways. One doesn't want private information logged to a public ledger. So there are ways to address that. We can implement it through digital identity stacks and the issuing of credentials, the verifiable credentials. You can do it through some kind of privacy layer or ZK proofs, selective disclosure for to maintain the privacy. There are many ways now that Hedera can be utilized to support a KYC process, which can then be kind of portable or transported across different jurisdictions, and that's a very exciting development that we're seeing across a lot of use cases. Actually, digital identity is one of the governing council's members' most interested or interesting use cases that I'm seeing repeated time and time again. And the I've been saying for many years, the cornerstone of really good use cases on blockchains and on distributed ledger technologies, and Hedera in particular, is digital identity. It's a key enabler for most of these things like supply chains and Industry 4.0 and stable coins and real-world asset tokenization. All of these things require some form of digital identity to be in place. And that underpins a KYC process as much as any Web 2 process does.
All right, so the next question comes from HBAR, who asks, are there any imminent use cases incoming that will add TPS, and what sort of time horizon are we looking at to start seeing more drop? What are the most common issues enterprises are finding in deploying projects on the Hedera network? Now, Rob, this is right up your alley. You're trying to deploy your own things on the network for AP+. So what are your thoughts here?
Well, I think I tackled the first part of that question earlier, and we talk about high throughput use cases a lot. There are quite a lot of constraints to delivering enterprise Web3 distributed ledger technology type applications. And it's not just the internal processes that we talk about quite a lot, jumping through the hoops and getting legal approval and risk approval and, business sponsorship and product market fit alignment and media and comms kind of lined up. Those are all things which are, drive a necessary but almost glacial process sometimes for enterprise change. On the external side, Hedera enterprise application and Hedera startup utility and solutions need integrations. They need ecosystem integrations, and we've seen a few, and by which I mean kind of custodial wallet technology. that enable tokens to be, or Hedera token service, native tokens to be stored in custodial wallets and not self-custodied. That's almost essential for most enterprise applications. The bridges that we're seeing develop now have been kind of slow coming, but the Hashport was out on its own for a very long time. We're seeing Axelar and Layer Zero kind of materializing now. The oracles and the other integration services like transaction monitoring and smart contract audit. These are all things that have developed in the ecosystem but have been late to Hedera because of this EVM equivalence that has been only latterly delivered. So many of these integrations are necessary in order to build enterprise-grade, robust Web3 integrated solutions. And so I think the Hedera network is just perfect for building enterprise solutions, but the integrations into the ecosystem are still developing. I know the foundation been working on that. We've got a lot better at it than we were maybe a year ago, but there's still quite a lot to do. And for example, we don't have a custodial wallet at the moment that natively stores Hedera token service tokens, and that's necessary if you want to have stablecoin. If you want to build some kind of vault that can store many different types of stablecoin that are issued on the Hedera token service under the Stablecoin Studio, you can't do it. If you want Guardian tokens that are natively on the Hedera token service, all in a wallet, a custodial wallet, you still can't do it. And we will be able to do it, and we'll be able to do it hopefully in the not too distant future. But that's been an inhibitor for kind of enterprise adoption. And through CorpCom, we are focusing a lot on those inhibitors to adoption as much as the use cases themselves.
All right, fair enough. The next question comes from Jay Key, who says, "Hi, Rob. Appreciate you and your good humor. My question, Ubisoft announced a collaboration with the Arbitrum Foundation. Is there any reason for Hedera aficionados to be jealous?"
No. I mean, there's never any reason to be jealous anyway, is there? I don't think. So Ubisoft have been one of the more passive governing council members, I think, since they joined us. I think it's fair to say. You can see in the minutes. The fact that they have some kind of partnership with the Arbitrum Foundation to do something on another network, I think we're past the tribalism of my chain is better than yours. I prefer purple to your yellow chain. It's Web3 is about interoperability. It's collaboration. We need liquidity to flow across all of the networks. We need to focus on the things that we really do well. We want to wish everyone else well as well, because it's still an emerging space. And I think Hedera is very, very well set for a long and bright future. But jealousy doesn't help anyone at any time, I don't think. But it's no more than that. Do I wish that Ubisoft did more with Hedera? Yes, of course. But I don't know the decisions or even the detail of this particular announcement or question. So that's all there is to say.
All right, sounds good. The last one comes from Little Pixel, who asks, "What happened to the FPOS node?"
Oh, it's the AP Plus node. It's Australian Payments Plus. What happened was FPOS was the debit card infrastructure for Australia. That network got merged into all the payments infrastructure in Australia with our real-time payments system and our bill payment system and Connect ID and everything else. And so AP Plus is what used to be called the FPOS node.
Leave it on an easy one. Rob, I know you're going to be out of country for the next couple of weeks. We're not going to be able to do a Shark Bites for the next couple of weeks. It'll make some space for some other builders to hop on the show.
I won't hog the mic as much as I usually do.
But we can't wait to get you back here in a few weeks and enjoy your time wherever you might be going. Thanks for hopping on.
Thanks, Brandon, and good luck, everyone, for the Dead Pixel drop next week. Cheers.
And with that, we're going to get into a very abbreviated network analysis. The reason for that is Metrica is no longer covering the Hedera network with all the data that we were looking into before, and nobody's really backfilled all the information that I'd like to cover in the space, but hopefully that'll be coming before too long. That said, at the time of recording, we're processing about 8 to 10 transactions per second, and for the most part, we've been bouncing around in the single digits. We created about 16,000 accounts in the past 7 days, and looking at Hedera DeFi, the total value locked is about $48 million. Over $44 million of that is on SaucerSwap, $2.4 million on HSuite, and $1.6 million on HeliSwap, which looks like it's picked up some market share recently. Moving over to the crypto and HBAR markets, risk assets are having a good week, helping Bitcoin to a 10% gain in the past 7 days, 3% of that coming in the past 24 hours to 68,900. HBAR's been much more muted, up just 1% over the past week and 3% over the past day to 5.2 cents. Looking at the chart, we've been pretty range-bound the past few months between 4.5 and 6.5 cents. Now, this isn't a political statement, just looking at the impact on crypto, but it's looking more likely that the Republicans will take the White House, which would all but guarantee a much more favorable crypto regulatory environment. If the right holds both the executive and the legislative branches, we could even see comprehensive legislation allowing for the regulatory clarity this industry's been looking for. Generally, this could be a really bullish scenario for 2025, which would just so happen to align perfectly with the 4-year crypto cycles we've seen in the past. So as Rob mentioned, we're not going to get him on for Shark Bites next week, but we're going to have plenty of other guests. At a minimum, we're going to get May from HashPack on to talk about the tokenomics around their PAC token and any other features they might be bringing to market for their wallet. We're also, by popular demand, we've been getting a lot of requests for this team. We're going to get Dovu on and talk about the latest for them. We're also going to get Bobby Tinsley on. I just got in contact with him, so we're going to be able to talk through that phase 1 that they just went through and anything else they have in the future for Mondelez or any other partners they might be looking at. That's all we have. We'll see you next week.